Would like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop of May 23rd, 2017. Thank you all for being here. First item on our list today is a presentation overview of the fiscal year 18 budget process, and I think Susan and Kristen are going to handle that for us.
Alrighty, good evening. So tonight Susan and I will go over the proposed budget with you. As you know, we met in January at the retreat, and at that time we presented how we thought FY17 was projecting to end and revenue estimates and any expenditures that we knew of at the time. And then we presented again in April when we had a better idea of some of our revenue projections, and also after we heard from a number of our departments. And so this budget PowerPoint will go over the FY18 budget and highlight any major revenue and expenditures. So the first slide here is just going over a schedule for the evening. I won't read it verbatim. As you can see, we have a pretty packed schedule with a lot of outside agencies coming to present after Susan and I talk. And then tomorrow's schedule, we'll hear from all three school systems and all three fire districts proposing a rate increase. Thursday, sorry. I'm just so eager and excited. Alrighty, so let's get started. So I did want to note that on top of most of the PowerPoint slides, I do reference the pages in the budget book where you can find additional information. So if you want to follow along tonight or have some further reading, you can feel free to do so. So the main fund we'll be talking about tonight is the general fund, but this gives you an overview of all 6 of our funds. So for FY18, we are proposing the general fund at $246,620,485, which is around a $9.8 million decrease from FY17's revised budget. And that's the large majority of that decrease is from fund balance appropriations and contributions made to the Capital Reserve Fund. The landfills budget for FY18 is proposed at $971,000, which is a decrease of around $75,000. And this decrease is primarily related to improvement projects that took place in FY17 for the design and quality assurance and expansion of the landfill at that time. And feel free to stop me as I'm speaking if you have any questions. So the 911 Emergency Telephone System Fund is proposed at around $877,000, which is a decrease of around $180,000 or close to it. And this is due to the fact that we received additional revenues in FY17 from a proceed from a lease on 911 equipment and upgrades. So that's what that decrease is for. The Arena and Event Center Fund, which is, of course, for the arena and our fair, is budgeted around $1.5 million for FY18, which is around a decrease of $186,000. And that's due to the fact that in FY17, performance fees were paid to SMG, so that's what you're seeing that decrease for. Our health and dental insurance fund for FY18 is proposed at $10.7 million. So you're seeing an increase in this fund, and that's just due to an increase in insurance premiums and claims due to additional employees, which I'll get into our position request later on in the PowerPoint presentation. And then our workers' compensation and liability fund, you can see we are proposing to budget that at $1.6 million, which is just a slight increase of $35,000 from FY17's revised budget. And again, that's just due to an additional increase in staff and premiums.
Okay, so the next slide is the overall summary, and the budget for 18 was prepared with a 70-cent tax rate, which has been the same for the past 5 years, so 70 cents. The valuation did increase by 4.02%, and this is due to growth, regular growth. The collection percentage rate went up that we could use, And, well, that's not the valuation. It's mainly due to growth. We'll get into the revenues in a little bit. The penny on the tax rate right now, so for any 1 cent increase in our tax rate would generate $2.1 million. So for every penny, it's worth $2.1 million in the tax, for the tax. The all funds line, that's all the funds, again, from the previous slide, that's all our annual adopted funds, the 6 funds that Kristen just spoke about. And again, the decrease is $9.4 million. And as she spoke earlier, that was mainly due to we had an increase in our revenues and some increases in expenses in 18. However, for 17, we transferred over $14 million to our capital reserve for one-time projects, which is based on our 15% fund balance policy. And so that we have to increase our budget to be able to make that transfer, and that's usually done after the CAPRs, the financial report is presented to you and approved, usually in the December timeframe. So that did take place in December of 16. So that was the net decrease for it. It was the $9.4 million for all funds. And of course, the general fund is the 9.8 of that. 9.4 was a net of all the funds. The FTE slide, we'll be talking about FTEs on a future slide, so I won't go into that right now, but we'll show a 2.68% change.
Alrighty, so this slide just gives you some comparison of the FTE, so that stands for full-time equivalent, from FY17's adopted budget to revised to what we're proposing for FY18. So as you can see, there was around a 5.03 change in FTEs from the adopted budget to revised. And I listed on the slide the change, or what makes up that change. So just to go over it briefly, the 0.37 FTE increase is from a transfer in the transportation department to create 2 positions, one for an administrative assistant in the county manager's office, and then one for a facility crew chief position in infrastructure and asset management's department. Some of the other increases included an increase in hours for the senior center, an increase in a literacy assistant position, which was funded through grant funds, a increase in economic development for the director position, a increase in the animal shelter for a kennel tech position, which happened fairly recently, and then a little over a 1.35 FTE increase for lunch plus hour sites. And then you'll see the 29.96 FTE proposed for FY18 is mainly due to the new position request, which I'll go over later in the PowerPoint presentation. All right, so this chart shows you an overview of revenues by our sources. That's how we categorize them in the budget, and you can see the budget book page there, page 77. For further information. So as you all know, our ad valorem taxes, that's our property taxes, we are proposing to budget those at $154 million, which is around a $7 million increase from our FY17 revised budget. And just to give you some comparison, that property taxes account for 62% of our revenue sources in the general fund. So the other taxes category is primarily consists of our sales tax, which is budgeted around $48 million. And then other revenues in this category include our cable franchise fee, which we are proposing to budget around $532,000. And this category represents around 21% of total general fund revenues. So the intergovernmental revenue category are those revenues that consist primarily of state and federal grants, mainly from our Human Services Department, such as DHS, daycare, foster care, transportation, but it does include other state and federal grants. There we go. So this category is budgeted around $22 million and is an increase of around 1% from our FY17 revised budget. And just to put that into some perspective, around $14 million of that $22 million is for human service activities. And Medicaid hold harmless money is budgeted in intergovernmental revenues, and that is budgeted around $1.1 million. And then court facility fees is also captured in that revenue category at $330,000. And so overall, this category represents 8.9 around 8.9% of the general fund revenue. Alrighty. Permits and fees is our next revenue category. As you guys know, that includes our building inspections and our Register of Deeds fees, which we'll go over later in the slide presentation. This category is budgeted around $6.4 million, which is around a 15.5% increase from FY17's revised budget. And in particular, Register of Deeds fees increased, we're proposing to increase around $439,000, and building inspection fees, we're proposing that they will increase around $395,000. And overall, this category accounts for 2.6% of all revenues in the general fund. So sales and services are those fees that are rendered to the public or other departments of the government or to other governments. And some examples of these, and probably the largest example in this category, are our ambulance fees, rec fees, library fees, jail fees. So the proposed budget for this category is around $11.4 million. And the majority of this increase does come from our ambulance fees, which we're projecting will increase by around $230,000 for FY18. And also in this category is the state misdemeanor crime program with the sheriff's office, and we're projecting that to increase around $174,000. So overall, this category accounts for 4.64% of general fund revenues. Investment earnings are those revenues earned on idle money held by the county for investment, and we are proposing this budget at $500,000 for FY18, which is a $220,000 increase from FY17's revised budget. And when estimating this revenue, the county evaluates the current market rate, projected cash flow, and available idle funds to project out this revenue category. And so overall, it accounts for 0.2% of all general fund revenue.
I'm going to try to keep questions to a minimum
Yeah,
so
no
we can keep
problem.
moving. But is there new money in that, or is that existing money that we're going to double, almost double? I
Okay.
didn't quite understand what you.
Currently, we are over budget for our interest income for the year. When the slides are prepared, it's the revised budget. So even though we've got $280,000 in FY17, that doesn't mean that we collect $280. We might collect $400,000. We also have now a person in our finance department who concentrates on investments. Prior to that time, when we did not have our accounting senior accountant, we had our money sitting. It was always safe, but it was just sitting in a fund that was not earning as much interest. We have someone now who's dedicated to going out and purchasing legal.
Actively managing the
Actively
account.
managing our account.
Okay, that
Plus,
makes
plus
much
I
more
said,
sense.
the budget, we're going to collect more than that $280,000 for
Okay.
17.
Okay.
That's a great question, because sometimes that is misleading when we're looking at some of the slides that we were talking about it during the presentation, that when you're looking at the budget, that doesn't mean how we think, doesn't necessarily mean how 17 is going to end. For example, I'm going to talk about property taxes in a little bit. Well, we're already, right now, over budget for the year, and we haven't even got to June.
Okay,
So,
great.
but
Thank you.
great question.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. So for the miscellaneous revenue category, these are for revenues that aren't really specific in nature and didn't fit nicely into one of those other categories, such as sale of our fixed assets and any donations we may receive throughout the year. So for FY18, we are proposing this budget at $438,000. And just so you know, this category is amended throughout the year as we appropriate donations and the sale of fixed assets when they are received. And so overall, this revenue category accounts for 0.18% of all general fund revenues. And last is the other financing sources, which for FY18, we are proposing at a little over $2 million, which is a decrease of 91%, so that looks really off, but the other financing sources category includes our fund balance appropriation, so that 15% fund balance appropriation that Susan referred to, and any contributions to the capital reserve fund. So that's why you're always going to see a decrease in that category. So this fund does include $2 million in lottery proceeds, and also includes a reimbursement for the 911 addressing position. And so overall, this category accounts for 0.8% of all general fund revenues. Alrighty, moving on to expenditures. So this slide is going to show you an expenditure, what we call by category. So we have 3 major categories, which are personnel services. So those are obviously going to be all of our costs associated with our staff, insurance, benefits, stuff of that nature. So the majority of this increase is coming from the 34 positions that we're proposing in FY18's budget, which I keep referencing that I'll mention later in the slide presentation. And the operations budget we're proposing at $172 million, and we're projecting that to go down from FY17's revised budget, and that's just due to a lot of decreases across county departments, and we make revisions throughout the year, which is why you're seeing a decrease there. Capital outlay is for any projects in individual departments' budgets that are over $5,000 but under that $100,000 threshold, because that $100,000 is of course going to qualify it as a CIP project. So you can see for the general fund that is budgeted at a little over $2 million, which is a decrease, and that's mainly due to a number of departments that decreased their capital outlay spending, but normally revisions are made throughout the year. So I added this next slide in because I thought it was probably a little more telling than the previous slide I just talked about. So this is going to show you spending by function area, which is what we work a lot in with the budget. So as you know, we have 9 major service areas, which includes general government, culture and rec, public safety, economic and physical development, environmental protection, human services, education, school debt, other debt service that's not including schools, and other programs. So just briefly, as you can see, education is our largest function area where we spend most of our money at 47%, with the FY18 proposed budget coming in around $116 million for education, and that does include debt service in that category. And if you wanted to refer back to the specific budgeted numbers, these are on pages 82 and 83 of your budget books. So next is public safety, which is coming in around 17%. And this, of course, includes our sheriff, jail, animal control, animal shelter, construction standards, emergency management, and EMS. And the FY18 proposed budget for this function area is around $40 million. So human services is our next major expenditure category, which comprises around 16% of general fund spending and includes departments like child welfare, economic services, child support, adult services, our veterans, and cooperative extension departments. And the FY18 budget for this totals around $39 million. General government is next, which comprises around 12% of all general fund spending, and of course includes departments like the Board of Commissioners, Human Resources, Tax, Board of Elections, Finance, IT, and Infrastructure and Asset Management. And the FY18 proposed budget for this category is coming in around $28 million. And our non-school or other debt service area comprises around 4% of total general fund spending and includes debt for the Sheriff Admin Building, Housing Unit, and Wallace Park Land, and it's around $10 million. Culture and Rec comprises around 2% of the total budget and includes our Active Living and Parks Department and our Senior Center and the library, and this totals around $5.6 million. Next, Economic and Physical Development comprises around 2% of all general fund spending and includes departments such as Planning and Zoning, Soil and Water, and our Economic Development Incentives. And for FY18, we are proposing this budget around $4.6 million. And our other programs area is including the contributions to our other funds, and it comprises around 0.3% of all general fund spending. And so the FY18 budget is $639,837, which is the contribution that we make to the arena. And then last is environmental protection, which covers around 0.2% of all general fund spending, and that of course includes our waste reduction and recycling budget. And the FY18 proposed budget for this area is around $514,000.
Okay, so the next slide is ad valorem taxes, and just to let you know, the estimation of the valuation is provided by the Tax Administration Office, and then I work with them. We usually get our first estimates in time for your budget workshop in January, your retreat, and then each month we work together and need to see if the numbers need to be revised based on, they look at the building industry to see how many permits have been issued and try to get a good estimate for what they think the bills will be going out in July, August timeframe. So each month we're trying to project what we think the revenues will be, well, the valuation will be for FY18. So for the projected growth for FY18 is 2.43%, and some of those, the growth is based on, for the revenue is based on like a collection rate increase, higher collection rate each year, and or just regular discoveries during the years of properties that were not previously taxed, and just pure growth. So we're going to be adding additional $7 million to the FY18 revenues compared to the budget for FY17. And notice I said budget for FY17 because we're going to, right now, it looks like our current revenues are going to be over $4 million over budget. The collections are going to come in $4 million over what we had budgeted for 17. So this $7 million is based on that $4 million plus what we think is going to be growth for 18. So it gets a little confusing. But we're required to use the tax collection rate of 98.02% for real property and 100% for DMV. And the reason we have 100% DMV, if you remember that when you go to get your tax and tag at the DMV office, that's so they're pretty well collecting if you're not going to get your tag if you don't pay your taxes. So that really has increased our revenues for DMV collections, because before we were running around, I don't know, 88, 89, 90%. And now we can say we're at 100%. So that has helped us. So we have to use a combined rate of 98.19%, and that is the actual collection rate for the previous fiscal year. So our audited collection rate for FY16, June 30, 16, was the 98.19. So we have to use that for the upcoming year by statute. So overall,
I have a question.
Okay.
Before you go on. The 98.19%, how does that compare to surrounding counties?
I could check, but I don't have that. If that was be something
No,
in particular.
Just curious, because I know it's gradually increasing from where you said 88%, and it's gradually increasing, which is a good thing. I guess we're finally getting things figured out, you know. It's not necessarily your department, but everywhere else
Right,
to
right.
make it work.
And we're settling some appeals that are happening, so some
Sure.
of those past payments are coming through now as we settle some of these cases.
Sure, but when that stuff comes in, though, and then it may get back to normal then, because that's like a one-time deal, unless you got more to replace those.
But it's improving the percentage, though, over the, okay. As long as you continue to not collect it while you're still in litigation or whatever, it still shows up at a lower percentage because you're not actually collecting it.
Right. Well,
That percentage doesn't move unless we actually get money in the bank.
Right.
So-
Well, that's a good thing, though. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not many entities that can say that they have that good of a collection rate, you know, so that's good. Good effort on the tax department.
We have, I would say probably 15 years probably worth that we could go back, or even further if I dig far enough, percentage of Cabarrus County collection rates that we could pop out in no time. But for me I don't mind going and getting some other counties, surrounding counties, and getting their collections. Okay, but it might be interesting for future.
Well, I had the same thought. Just more curiosity than
Sure.
anything, so I wouldn't propose that you spend a lot of time
It
on
won't.
it.
Okay. It
We've
won't
got
take long.
The association's got
Yeah,
this.
the association has a budget and tax survey report, and we have to turn data in every year, so I can get you that report off the website, and you can scroll down, and there's comparative data this wide with all kinds of tax rates, collection rates.
Let's be careful with our.
Well, what it does is it helps us stay on track and to help us know how we got where we are,
Sure.
you know, and if there's other counties doing better than we are, then guess what? We want to know what they're doing. And if they knew what we were doing, they'd want to know too.
I know our tax department, collection department does a great job of going with liens and tax garnishments, and we see the advertisements in the paper come April or so when people are delinquent. That sometimes they'll get a rush of people coming in and paying, so they won't be advertised in the paper. So that help. All these procedures help. So at the end, the valuation projected for FY18 is $22 billion, and that's made up of real, personal, and DMV, the total amount. The next slide is sales tax, and I've spoken to you several times about the difficulty in sales tax. So for the first 9 months of sales tax, which is what we have right now, we still have 3 months outstanding. We receive our sales tax in the middle of the month, so we just received the May 15th distribution, so we'll get May, then we'll get another one in June, July, and August. The August 15th payment will be for June. So that'll clear up our year. So right now, we have 3 more months to collect sales tax. And so each month, I'm taking the amount we receive, trying to project out to the end of the year, and then come January, I have to project out the rest of the year plus the whole next 12 months. So that, and I've spoken to you earlier about the difficulty also in the refunds that we have established. And just to let you know, an average for 6 years, we have usually around an average of 11% of our sales tax goes back out for refunds. So that hurts. So some years are better than others. So if you get a year that's only 4% or 6% compared to one that was 16% a couple years ago, it's hard to get that average in there.
And that's for such as nonprofits?
Nonprofits, yes.
And any other category?
Yes.
Because that's a huge amount.
It is.
You know, when you look at, 46 million and 11% of that.
And then and of course, that 46 million has the refunds already taken out of it. So with so much we could have collected any more. They back it out before they give it to us, so, which would hurt if we had to write a check to them, wouldn't it? Since we've been analyzing the sales tax each month, we had one bad month, which was February, and we received that in April, and our sales tax was down. So at that point, I had already established what I thought 18 was going to come in at. And like I said, again, it's confusing. We have 7.6% increase over what actually came in 16. So if we just purely looked at that, then we could say, okay, we're going to increase 7.6%. That's not really realistic to say that's going to continue, because the state's Fiscal and Research Division has estimated a 4.8% increase. So right now, when I'm looking at it, we have like a 5.3% increase, I think, before the end of the year, that we will be based on FY16 to FY17. I think we're going to be at 5.3%. So we take that into consideration. And if we have some more bad months, these last 3 months come in, then my estimate might be too high for 18. I mean, that's realistic. But right now, we're not anticipating changing the budget. We're going to leave it alone. And if 18 just really has a decline in sales tax, we have reserves, which we keep in fund balance for things like this, for state estimates and things that don't come in quite what we want to. We don't want to do that, and we have never had to do that. But that is that cushion there, that with our fund balance. So at this time, we want to leave our sales tax estimates alone, and hopefully each month we will still see increases.
Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor what the legislature's doing on their sales tax redistribution options that they're looking at. We know that the bill that's been proposed, the legislative staff is figuring that it would impact us at a little more than $500,000. We're not sure. Some don't agree that the ones we've talked to, some of them don't agree that it's that much, but we're going to stick to it. We still feel pretty comfortable that we can absorb it if we have to. We'll see. Don't want to. Yeah, no.
And some of our months can even swing $1 million. So from one month to another, we can have a decrease or increase of $1 million between the 2 months, and with no really rhyme or reason. I mean, you can sort of see sometimes, like, this is December sales, and we know that December the retailers are collecting the sales tax. They give it to the state in January, and then they turn around and give it to us in February. So in some of that time overlaps, so it could be January, February before we get some of the seasonal sales. So we do try and dig into it and try and figure out a pattern.
Just out of curiosity, on the sales tax we're talking about, how has the increase in service tax, for example, I had my car washed the other day, and I was charged tax on the car wash. They used to didn't do that.
True.
Where does that money go? Do we get any of that money?
We do get up to a certain amount. We're not going to be getting the growth after this year. So the legislative was written, so after this year, any growth of that new sales tax will go to the other 80, the lower wealth counties, yes. So we are not one of the ones that will be sharing in the growth, but this year we were able to get up to the base amount. So they do not, and when I get the sales tax information, they don't break it out and say, this is the new amount for your labor. It's just one lump sum. And even the refunds are hidden. You have to dig down and try and figure out how much the refunds that hit for the thing. But I have not seen a report that shows that here's the amount for the new tax and this is the amount for the old tax, non-labor versus labor.
Well, these are the type questions that the general public want to know. Why am I paying more taxes? Where does it go? And for them to know that a portion of our taxes is going to be going to other counties, may not sit too well with everybody. I mean, but that's just the way it is. Some things are out of our control, and that's one of them, because we didn't, that's not a rule or a law that we made. That come out of Raleigh.
Right.
So, anyway.
But we'll continue to monitor.
So as Susan talked about two of our major revenue sources, property taxes and sales tax, I'll just touch briefly on a few of our other revenue sources that we will see an increase for FY18. So as I've already mentioned, building inspection revenue, we are budgeting around $3.2 million, which is a projected increase of around $395,000. So our Register of Deeds fees, we are budgeting around $2.8 million, which is an increase of around $439,000 from the FY17 revised budget. Ambulance fees, like I've talked about earlier, are budgeted at $5.4 million, which is around a $230,000 increase over the FY17 revised budget. And then our lottery fund revenue has remained the same over the past few years. So for FY18, we left that budget at $2 million, as in the past.
Kristen, I just have one more question for
Sure.
you guys move on or whatever, and that is going back to the building inspections. We've added people there, and we're expecting obviously an increase in revenue. How are we doing as far as covering costs for that department? Because there at one time we were spending more money than we were collecting. And so we did the increase in fees, and obviously it's showing here. But how are we, though, as far as covering our bases or covering the cost of the building inspections?
Right. I don't know the exact amount, but I know overall, we're covering costs well in that department just due to growth and then the additional inspectors. And also in this budget, building inspections is asking for an additional 2 inspectors to help with that growth and a permit clerk. So I can get that information for you. The specifics.
Historically, building inspections, it pays for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes.
Alrighty, so moving on to the new positions. So I just wanted to note that when we first started the budget process, a total of 58 positions were requested across all of, or a majority of our county departments. And so after meeting with departments, the FY18 budget is proposing 34 new positions as a part of this budget. So I will go over all 34 positions and any position changes such as reclassifications. And we also have some of our department heads here that are requesting new positions. If you have any further questions, they can chime in and help me. So to start, the county manager's office is requesting a budget analyst position to assist with the overall budget process and performance evaluation countywide across all departments. So as you know, budget is a very lengthy process. It's a year-long process, so an analyst would help with that process and also helping track performance metrics for individual departments.
And I guess to add to that, to finances, currently there is an accountant position. That employee in that position assists with the budget. However, the demands in the finance department side are requiring her to spend more time on the finance side. So therefore, we're going to move that position to 100% working totally with finance operations, and then this budget analyst will come in and assist with the budget. So
the communications department is requesting a multimedia journalist to assist with the new website and expand our transparency efforts through our various media platforms. Our Human Resource Department is requesting a recruiter position, which will help assist with vacancies in departments countywide by going to job fairs and stuff of that nature. Our Infrastructure and Asset Management Department is requesting 2 additional positions for FY18's budget. One, a grounds maintenance worker, which will be dedicated to Rob Wallace Park, and then a facility services worker, just due to the expanding services and building needs that our county is seeing. The Sheriff's Office is requesting 2 additional positions. One, a records clerk, and this is to meet with the increased volume in concealed carry permits that we see in that department, and then also a sergeant, which is for the town of Harrisburg, which the county will get reimbursed for that position. Like I mentioned earlier, so Construction Standards is asking for 2 codes enforcement officers and a permit clerk to help keep up with the growth and demand and services that this department's seeing. And our Emergency Management / Fire Services Department is requesting an additional firefighter position to assist with the newly implemented manpower unit that we implemented in last year's budget to assist with the volunteer fire districts and providing fire services.
On that position, we had talked about transitioning from one team to an additional team for the next fiscal year, which would be 4 additional positions. Right now, with Mr. Marshall and Bobby Smith have talked and analyzing the progress that we're making. We're moving along pretty well. They think that just adding 1 position to the current shift or the current team will be sufficient for next year, and then we'll look again in the future years if we want to add an additional full team. You want to add anything to that?
How big is that team?
4-person team.
So that'll give it 5?
That will give them 5, and that will give them the ability to cover what they need and still cover for vacations and training and other things.
Is that working out? Is it working out pretty good too?
They do have
I
some
mean,
auxiliary hours also to help cover when there's vacations and stuff, so they have times to be able to insert. I don't know how many are on that staff level, but they have the ability to fill in for when others are gone.
I remember when we done that, just for Blake's knowledge and then general view in public, and that is that these people that we're talking about here, this team, they are to assist the fire departments in other areas where they're lacking firefighters and that type thing.
In our volunteer fire departments.
In the
that
volunteers.
we contract currently with the volunteer fire departments to handle the fire service within the county. Some of the departments have declining membership. This is to help supplement them. Typically they don't have problems getting the apparatus to the scene. It's having enough individuals there to go in and fight the fire. So this will bring in manpower that will work under the supervision of that chief of that department. They don't come in and take over the scene. They come in and work under the supervision, and they add purely manpower. Commissioner Kiger, for your purposes, they can get the apparatus there, but they got to have a minimum of 4 firefighters to start fighting fire. So sometimes, so if only 2 get there, they can't do anything. They have to wait on the other. So we're sending manpower there to facilitate with that and then hopefully additional volunteers will come in and supplement it as well as it goes along.
And that minimum of 4 is a state regulation?
It's a federal national.
Regulation?
I was going to say, Mr. Smith is here if you
Yeah.
want to ask him directly, but this is a direct outgrowth of the fire study that you adopted, that you had put in place and made a number of recommendations. And one of the things we found was the people working further from where they live, and that during the day in particular, the volunteers may not be in that district, whereas once they may have been. So this allows us to have some people who can supplement that during the day. That's the hours we're concentrating on. And then what Bobby and Steve Langer have proposed is some additional hours to help with some training also. But training of our positions, but helping with training with some of these volunteer departments.
Yeah, and hopefully the addition of these teams will allow the volunteer departments who are having problems with membership over the years to continue to be a volunteer department and continue to provide that service with us supplementing the assistance. If not, then staff and you will have to make other decisions in the future if the membership for the volunteers continues to decline, and if we didn't have this service, we would have to make other decisions of combining departments and that type of stuff. And that's not what we're pushing for. We're just pushing to supplement them so that they can continue to operate as they do.
And it would be good for them to do, and we'll be hearing from them, I think it's Thursday,
Yes,
from the
sir.
fire departments. But this is a service that really benefits the county because those are unpaid people. They're volunteers. But now the team that we're talking about, that more than likely, if the trend continues as it has been, declining volunteers with the volunteer fire departments, then obviously to make up that deficit, this team that we're talking about will probably increase over time. We couldn't just jump in all at one time and say, okay, we're going to make all the volunteer fire departments, paid people and all that, because the bite would be so huge.
Sure.
So you have to do it a little bit at a time as that declines. Maybe it'll get better, though, with time
We
goes on.
have the volunteers we have are excellent
Oh,
volunteers.
yeah.
And we've got some very good volunteer fire departments that are maintaining their membership, but we have some others in some of the rural areas that are not able to, not by any fault of their own, it's just they're not able to, they're not having the people that are joining, so this is to help supplement those.
Right.
So our Emergency Medical Services Department is requesting an additional 5 part-time EMTs, and that's to assist with workload and the part-to-full-time ratio in this department. Our Child Welfare Department is requesting a total of 8 positions, which includes 4 social work assessment workers, 1 part-time social assessment worker, and 1 administrative associate, and this is all due to an increase in cases and workload that this department's seen. Child Welfare is also requesting a social work supervisor to manage the additional staff mentioned above, and 1 human service evaluator position to assist with continuous quality assurance. And our Child Support Division is requesting an additional child support agent due to an increase in caseload. And our Economic Services Division is requesting an additional 4 positions, which includes 2 income maintenance caseworkers, 1 supervisor due to an increase in Medicaid and child service cases that this department's seen, and 1 foreign language interpreter due to an increase in Spanish-speaking cases in both child welfare and public assistance. So the Adult and Family Services Division is requesting an additional social worker to assist with guardianship appointments, and our Active Living and Parks Department and Senior Center is requesting a total of 4 positions, which includes 1 park attendant, which will assist out at Franklin Park, 1 senior park ranger to help staff Rob Wallace Park, 1 part-time park ranger due to an increase in park programming, and 1 Active Living Center supervisor, which is a part-time position, and that is due to an increase in facility use for programs seen at the Senior Center. So in total, that is a total of 34 positions. And I forgot to mention, you can see in your budget book on pages 71 and 72, you can see the full list of all positions requested, and then the ones that made it through the manager's adjustments. So other position detail, which you can see on your budget book on page 92 as part of the budget process, we normally include any reclassifications, transfers, and changes in hours. So our Information Technology Services Department is requesting to reclassify a technical specialist position to a systems administrator. And this is to help support the Sheriff Admin Building and Detention Center security system. And we also had a few transfers as a part of this budget process, so it's no increase in any dollar figures. It's just simply moving a position from one department to another, and this was just to help better align the positions with the departments that they oversee. So we transferred 1 sustainability manager from Infrastructure and Asset Management's Administration Department to Waste Reduction and Recycling, and that's the department that they are over. And then 1 fire marshal and 3 assistant fire marshal positions from the Emergency Management Department to our Fire Services Department.
These, as we just transferred, they're within the same overall department, and we're moving them within different budgets. but they're like the 3 fire marshals or the 4 fire marshal positions, they'll move into a fire budget, but they're still supervised by Bobby Smith, the emergency management director. They're still under that same umbrella. And same thing with the sustainability manager has always been in the IMS department, but it was in one administrative budget. Now it's going over into the reduction of recycling budget. So it's just to get the individuals who are supervising those divisions, their salary and everything goes into those divisions. So.
And then last, we had a few change in hours, as you can see proposed in this year's budget. So the elections department is requesting to change 7 part-time election clerk positions from a .30 to a .40 FTE increase, just due to meet the demands of prep work that occurs before an election season. 3 part-time community social service technician positions from a .66 to a .70 FTE, and this is to meet the demands of the home management service program. And then the library is requesting to adjust hours for a part-time senior library assistant from .70 to a full-time position, and this is due to an increase in cataloging and to reduce the time to get books on the shelves over at the library. So as we discussed at the retreat, according to the personnel policy, we normally do account for a merit and a COLA each year in the budget process. So the COLA is based on the Consumer Price Index, which we have budgeted at 2%. So the total cost to implement the COLA in the FY18's budget is around $1.1 million. And then the county's personnel policy also accounts for a merit system for pay increases for employees on the anniversary date of their position. So currently, our merit system goes up to 2.5%. And so to determine the cost of the merit, I looked at 6 months worth of employee evaluations, which was around 464 employees, receiving an average merit of around 1.5%. And so we projected the budgeted cost for FY18 to implement the merit would be around $500,000. So health insurance and workers' comp for FY18. So health insurance costs are budgeted at $7,761 per employee in FY18, which was an increase of around $7 per employee over FY17. And in FY17, the county contributed $787,000 to fund the operations of the workers' comp fund, and this is increasing slightly to $811,000 for FY18. And these increases are due just to fund the cost of the programs, and that they are evaluated on an annual basis.
So debt service, we'll talk about debt service next. Our normal retirement debt service, and we have an issuance of debt coming up this fall. So we'll have a net increase in debt service of $5,026,073. And I just want to list the new debt service payments for the project. So we had the Wallace Park land, and we had additional land for Wallace Park. We have a downtown parking deck, a new high school, Performance Learning Center, and the warehouse. So we had a call today with the local government commission, and everything's on go. We have everything in line. We have a debt calendar that we're following to anticipate issuing our debt in late October for the final 4 projects there. And right now we're working closely with the Cabarrus County Schools on the high school. The cost estimates by the architect are coming in higher than we had hoped. So we're closely watching that to see what's going to happen with that, and we will keep you updated on that. But as you'll know, we had our bond documents. Each time I come to the board and ask for permission of different steps of the document, we're doing a not to exceed amount, so we're still good on our bond documents. So we will update you with any new numbers just to let you know that the building industry is booming. So getting people to bid and getting different quotes and things, I think are going to be, the prices are driving the prices up right now. So just didn't want anybody to be alarmed, but right now we are anticipating in high school to cost more than what we had originally anticipated. That's it. Any questions so far? Okay, so next section is education. For right now, the current expense for our public schools is the revised budget is 68 million, 68.7. The new proposed is 71 million, so that's an increase of 2.3 million. And some of those increases that we will anticipate making would be the state salary match for our local positions, teacher supplements, retirement and insurance increases, building and grounds for our new facilities that will open, and we have some custodial equipment built into that increase, and the charter student increase. So all that together, we're revised change of $2.3 million for our current expense. The capital outlay went down. It was like 5.5 million. We had a lot of one-time projects that were in FY17 that we do not anticipate for FY18 right now. So some of the one-time projects where we bought mobile units, if you recall a couple months ago, mobile units and buses, and some lifts, 3 lifts, and a wrecker for the bus garage during the past couple of months. So that drove the increase in the capital line item. The debt service increased for schools, and that was due to the, taking on the debt for the new Kannapolis Middle School, Mount Pleasant Middle School, and the Royal Oaks Replacement School. So all those debts, service payments came on this year, so that increased our debt service by $3.6 million. I show a small decrease in the county technology server backup. Due to price negotiations by our IT staff, we were able to negotiate lower pricing, and so that part was contributed to this decrease for the 2 school systems of $38,000. We do host some backups for the 2 school systems, so that's what that is included there. The school nurses are going up by $246,000, and that was to add had a new request for a school nurse for the pre-K program. And they also had an increase in their health insurance and merits and rate and fringes. So that's equates to $246,000.
And we will be making an adjustment for the new school health nurse. The Cabarrus County School Systems will no longer be doing the Head Start program. And I believe the recommendation from Fred Pilkington is for that school nurse to be a 50% position, and we'll be getting data from the Cabarrus Health Alliance so we can make that adjustment, but it did not have it in time for preparation for this book, so it will be a new final change after this list you have right now.
And that's because Cabarrus County Schools will no longer be administering the Head Start program. I'm not sure if I remember the name of the organization that's coming in. There will be a Head Start program, but there will be an outside company that's coming in to head that program up.
Their CDI, I believe is what they told us they were called yesterday.
What that
CDI.
meant, but,
I wanted to add also, for the school nurses there, just for the general public that listen to these meetings, and that 2.7 million that we're proposing in 2018, that's to ensure that we have a nurse in every school. And there's very few counties in North Carolina that can say that they have a nurse in all of their public schools. And so that's really something good. And that's $2.7 million that really the county don't have to spend that. But we do, though, because we want this to take place in our schools.
So going on to Rowan Cabarrus Community College, we had an increase in our current expense money of $227,000, and that's made up of an additional facilities technician staff and an increase in their operational costs for their buildings. So that was $227,000 increase. The capital it has a decrease, and there again they had some one-time projects that we don't anticipate having again in FY18. Their debt service went down just a small amount. As as we issue debt, our principal is level each year, but the interest can fluctuate from year to year. So in this particular year, the interest expense for the debt service for Rowan Cabarrus is actually going down a little bit, so decrease of $6,500.
Just briefly, I'll go over some of the contributions that we're proposing to make for FY18's budget. So as you can see, we're proposing no change in the Art Council funding, and I did want to mention that you will hear from a lot of these outside entities today. So for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, JCPC, This includes funding for Teen Court, the Positive Parenting Program, and the Rowan County Youth Services Bureau, and we're proposing funding for this at $295,111. Medical examiner, of course, is responsible for investigating deaths within the county. No proposed change in funding for that. The NC Forest Service, we did see a slight increase in cost proposed for FY18 due to a forest fire equipment operator position. The sales tax for fire districts is for the distribution of sales taxes to the appropriate local fire districts, and funding is projected to increase by almost $53,000 for the fire districts. The obligation to the city of Kannapolis is the interlocal agreement to the city that goes towards paying a debt service on public improvement projects. And this is budgeted around $1.5 million, so a slight increase from FY17's revised budget. The Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, Lomax Farm, you can see that we are proposing funding for them at $35,000, which is a $5,000 decrease from FY17's revised budget. The Economic Development Corporation, we are proposing no change in funding there, $400,000. The Health Alliance, which they will come and present later this evening, is asking to replace 2 of their on-site vehicles, funding for the school nurse position, which we've talked about to cover the pre-K site, and an increase in school nurse health insurance premiums from 50 to 80%. So that's why you're seeing a increase in that contribution. Our veterinary services line is for our Spay It Forward program, and we are proposing $15,000, so same as FY17 for that program. Funding for mental health is proposed around $614,000, and the Special Olympics funding is remaining the same from FY17 at around $65,000.
There's no increase in that number, personnel,
For Special Olympics,
for benefits and?
there might be, whenever the budget gets adopted from the state level, and we can take some money from contingency to fix that particular position, but I did not know what
Right.
that proposed position increase was.
Okay.
Mike, or Susan, whoever, on the mental health, the staying the same, does that include this new Stepping Up program?
That does. We are, this is the total that we could make contributions to Cardinal to provide services.
And
This is the same number. We have not committed that
Where it's
amount
gonna
to
go.
Cardinal, so we will have those discussions. But
Okay.
we hope to implement and begin that program Stepping Up with very, very little additional funds. And then we're also looking at some other programs, so that we'll be bringing to you in the next few weeks. Hopefully, if we can get some of these discussions moving forward than they are now. They seem to be dragging, but, so we may be recommending that some money, some go to Cardinal, some go directly to providers for other programs.
One question about the, like I know in a Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, that's all pass-through money. So it's not actually county dollars that we're spending. It's money that's allocated from the state that we administer. Would that be true in which of these other categories? Is like the Forest Service? No, that is an actual expense.
Our sales tax, we have a matching revenue and expenditure on the sales tax. Let's see if
Yeah,
there's
on the fire
anything
district,
else.
yeah. The Forest Service, that's our portion, the local
Okay.
match to
Okay.
the state.
That's probably the only one on that page.
So that would be unique to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. I wasn't sure.
That in the fire district, I mean,
Yeah.
sales tax.
New to FY18's budget, which I did want to highlight, and you will hear from both of these outside agencies today, I believe, is proposed funding at $25,000 for the Concord Downtown Development Corporation, and this is to assist with economic development and marketing initiatives. And also, the Cabarrus County Boys and Girls Club is requesting $50,000 to assist with their capital needs. like I said, you will hear from both of them later today, too, to present their request.
So our capital improvement plan, I think we spoke a couple times today about the $14 million that we transfer over to our capital reserve fund. So at this point, we have a little over $7 million to allocate, and these are some of the projects that were vetted and came up with to spend that $7 million. So I'll go through a couple of these projects. When we issue our debt for the parking deck, we try and do a debt and cash basis on all of our projects. So part of the parking deck project, we need $650,000 of our cash money, and that's for engineering and contingency. So remember, again, we try and borrow money just for construction and any infrastructure, needs, and the rest of it we try and pay cash with. And this is where we get our cash from, is the capital reserve fund. Our second item on there is the EMS advanced cardiac monitors. It comes in at $550,000. And usually projects in this category in our capital reserve, remember, are over $100,000 usually. Going on down, the EMS relocation of Unit 10 to Concord Fire Station number 10, $375,000 is allocated for that. With our courthouse expansion, right now we're in preliminary stages of our courthouse replacement expansion, and so the $1 million would cover planning and estimating for the future debt for that project. The next project is the Government Center ADA restroom renovation, Phase 1, because we're not going to be able to do them all at one time, so we're going to take different sections of this building, and make them ADA compliant. So $205,000 is allocated for that. And there are page references here for your budget book if you need to see more details on the projects. The next one is the jail upgrades for door access and security camera network, and $70,000 has been allocated for that public safety improvement. The final one on this page is the fiber infrastructure improvement for our Information Technology Services Division, and that's $120,000. Like I said, there's more details on those pages that are referenced on your book. Continuing on, we said Royal Oaks is being built right now, and we're using debt proceeds for the construction, but in the for the back end of that project, we have $1.8 million set aside for furniture, fixtures, and equipment and technology, and that's what the $1.8 million is set aside for. A new elementary school, we have allocated money for the purchase of the land, but this would be to get them started with their administrative, legal, architect, and engineering, so we have $1.2 million set aside for that project. Weddington High School, we have $669,000 that we need for this upcoming year, and that is for the engineering and contingency, and then some things are not bid in the construction contract with the Cabarrus County Schools staff feels like they can do themselves and save that money for the contractor, so some of those projects are also built into that $669,000. The next one is the Rowan Cabarrus Community College Business Technology Center AC unit replacement. This is phase 2 of that. It's $100,000 for replacement. The Performance Learning Center is the next one on the list, and that's $371,000, and that is the back end, so that's the technology front, furniture and fixtures and equipment for the Performance Learning Center. Finally on the list is $90,000. This one is actually not coming from our capital reserve. It's coming from our multi-year fund for our prime farmland soil. We try and keep $125,000 allocated and ready at any point for easements and different things for soil and water. So this $90,000 will get us back up to our $125,000 that we keep on hand. So we just needed $90,000 to transfer this year. Any questions? So beyond that, that spends all of our capital reserve money. So all of these future projects beyond FY18 that we want or need, right now there's no money set aside to fund additional capital improvement projects. So we work with the school board and the community college and through the years trying to revise our list and see what years we can afford to buy things and put what year we want to issue debt, what years we want to pay cash for things, and so that's part of the CIP plan.
So if you give me a moment, I'm going to hand out some information. This is everything that we know that's coming up in FY19 and a little bit of FY '20. And we were able to gather this information together, so we wanted you to have an idea of the needs that are coming before us. As Susan expressed, that we have nothing left in the capital reserve fund. We'll be handing you out a $47 million request for FY '19, plus about $35 million in debt funding, and a little over $4.6 million that we're aware of for 2020, along with $55.5 million of debt funding for the new courthouse. So I'll have this information for you so that you can have this for the budget process, but I did want to make sure that we had this for you today. That's good.
So as Pam mentioned, this will be the projects for 19 that we would like to say we have money in place, but there are needs, and we wanted to list the ones that we did know about.
Some of these were brought up at our chair vice chair meeting yesterday, and some of them have been on here for a while. We were, just a little bit of background, we've got some additional contingency for the new high school, about $1.2 million. The new Weddington High School furniture, fixtures, startup and technology of $4.4 million. 25 new school buses and 3 activity buses for the new high school, $2.5 million. The new elementary school that Susan referenced that we had the funding for the cash to buy the land and to do the architect and engineering. The backside for the FF&E startup and technology of $3.6 million. Rough estimate for the new middle school site, possibly in the ballpark of $2.5 million. We're not sure how many new school buses will be needed for the new elementary school, so that is highlighted without a dollar figure. Rowan Cabarrus Community College, a request for land acquisition around $3.1 million. The new middle school site would naturally need architect engineering to get started for the design, and we do not have anything for that. Cabarrus County Schools will be presenting to you on Thursday. Their deferred maintenance was $12.8 million for this year. Kannapolis City Schools will also be presenting on Thursday, but they don't have their deferred maintenance broke down by fiscal year, so I wasn't sure which number to put, but their total request was in the $22 million range for multiple years. We're also in conversations with a new high school site based on the growth, and the last site was about $4.6 million. We estimated $5 million. The design cost for the courthouse, $6 million. Northwest Cabarrus Park, $1.5 million. And I can continue on and read through the remainder of the projects, but that kind of gets you to $47.6 million worth of projects. $35 million worth of debt service for fiscal 2019. We would issue that in March of 18, and that would be for the Advanced Technology Center and the new elementary school. And then a continuing cost into 2020 for the courthouse and for park sites, and then the proposed debt for the new courthouse of $55.5 million. And then in pink in the bottom corner, ongoing needs for school sites, Harrisburg, Kannapolis, Midland areas, senior centers, and a public safety facility. So we wanted to give you an idea after we got through with the CIP and did some allocations that some of these things are immediate needs because we are in the process of building the new high school and we're looking to start the new elementary school, and with the growth in students, looking for the middle school site and then getting ready to look for a new high school site. Didn't want to overwhelm you, but did not want you not to be aware of some of the things that will be coming up to us 1 year from now, and just to prepare you to have that data on hand so that you would be aware of it. We're more accustomed to having the money and deciding what we want to do with it, and now we have what we need to do with it, and we got to go find the money. So we just wanted to get you some of that information for you to have during this budget process to let you know that the growth in the county is not stopping, and neither are the needs. So we wanted you to be prepared and have this information on hand. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to go over it with you, but just wanted to insert that in here so that you would have this data for you to be able to take with you and ask questions for anything along that. Jonathan's very familiar with all the land projects with the schools. He works very closely with them, so he could answer any questions in those areas. And Susan works very closely with the schools on all their requests for architect, engineering, design, and stuff. And so she has a lot of that data. And Mike was very helpful with a lot of the parks and the other things that were provided on this schedule. So that's about the gist of what I can provide to you. And
Yeah.
amongst all of this, somebody can answer your questions.
As we presented last week, that we balanced this year's budget at 70 cents. And it was tough to make that happen. It's going to continue to get even tougher for the future. Yes, we will continue to get growth. Yes, we will continue to have some overages at the end of the year. But as you can see, even with projected growth and overages, there's more needs there than there is going to be projected cash. So the board will need to begin to entertain options of securing additional revenues at some time in the near future in order to keep up.
If we get flexibility with the quarter cent that's limited to transportation, I believe now, if we could by chance get that quarter cent to help us with school debt, that would help us to the tune of what, 5 or 6 million?
It's actually closer to 7 million.
7 million?
It is. Yeah. That would require approval of the legislature, and it seems to be being looked at favorably at this time. They haven't voted on it yet, but so good news there, but then you would have to have a local referendum as well.
Right. Well, we want to be on the positive side, and because that 7 million would really help us with some of these things. Obviously, it's not going to be near enough, because the majority of this stuff is probably going to be debt service anyway, but that 7 million would help with debt service, no doubt.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can always, some of these, you can go out and borrow, but we don't recommend that for some of these things that you'd borrow money to pay for some of this, especially for maintenance projects and that type of thing. Land, you could do a short-term loan if you wanted, but we would recommend other options before we would recommend that. So.
Well, I think the sales tax question, giving us the flexibility on that quarter cent, it's important for the benefit of the public, because if we do that, it would have to be approved in that referendum. I think it's important that we always point out that a lot of that revenue would come from people outside the county that come to Cabarrus County to shop and to stay in our hotels and pay sales taxes in the county, as opposed to any property tax increase would come totally from our citizens. So it really, the benefit on that sales tax is much better for our citizens, I think.
All right, and just briefly moving on, I did want to touch on a few changes that we made to the 5-year plan since we last presented it in April, and it was just a few minor changes. We did increase the Medicaid hold harmless revenue, so you'll see an increase there. And also at the work session, we had proposed 36 positions, but as I went over in this presentation, from then we decided to remove 2 of those positions, and so we are only proposing 34 positions. So that reduced the cost for positions, that line on the 5-year plan. And additional current expense funding for schools was adjusted after receiving the ADM figures. And there is an increase in contingency on the 5-year plan, which reflects $378,078 in unallocated contingency, which I will discuss, I believe, in the next slide. Or
Just, this, I've sort of already went over this, but this just shows that there's no money left in the capital reserve for projects. So had a balance of 7.2. We've had Cabarrus County projects and school projects to come to a zero balance at this, if everything's approved. That's what the balance would be.
And Susan and I were looking through the capital reserve fund this afternoon, and there is potential in 2 school projects for Mount Pleasant and Kannapolis Middle School that are coming to an end, and they still have contingency. So there is some money that potentially could be turned back and not used. So we're hopeful, but we just wanted to let you know that we did peruse through that today, and there is potential, pending how those projects turn out, that we'll be able to release some of that contingency.
And related to that, Pam, do we have flexibility with those contingencies when they come back, or are they limited to debt service, or do we have flexibility for other CPI projects?
It's entirely what the board wants to do with it. You just restricted it within the capital reserve
Right.
fund and waiting for if there was a problem where they had to come and make a change order or something. Instead of putting it into the construction fund, we've gotten to where we just reserve it within the capital reserve funds, what makes it easier so that you just release it and use it for something else
Okay.
instead of transferring money back and forth.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
So as I mentioned, currently in FY18's budget, there is $378,078 that sits in unallocated contingency that is up for use at your discretion. But I did want to mention that, next slide if you don't mind. So the budget process does cut off in April to allow for staff to prepare the full document. So during this time, we do have items that we realized weren't budgeted for initially, and that's also when we get our final ADM figures in from the schools. So I believe attached in your packet is a final changes spreadsheet. And so I'll just briefly go over these final changes, and this is what we propose to use some of that unallocated contingency towards. So some of those, the major changes involves reallocating funds based on the ADM estimates. I know that's really small on the screen, so hopefully you can see it better in your packets. There's also a potential budget impact from a bill for DHS that will impact the special assistance to adults draft, which we didn't originally have budgeted for. So that could cost up to $250,000, so we have accounted for that. Other changes involve some departments that received updates for dues and subscriptions after we last presented the budget, or items that we forgot to initially budget for, like add-ons for some vehicles. Those two items listed for fleet maintenance, we are proposing to purchase with FY17's Medicaid hold harmless money, so therefore we are wanting to remove those from FY18's budget to free up some of those funds. Another major change is around $80,000, which is in payroll changes. So when we initially do the budget, we take a copy of our live payroll data, and that was taken back in February. So we've had a lot of merit increases, a lot of reclassifications that have taken place before then. So we are taking place after that time. So we do constantly update the salary projection to be as close to our live payroll system as possible, so we can budget for that accurately. So that would be an impact of around $80,000. And some of the other changes were just reallocation for funds for JCPC that you can see noted there. So all in all, in total, with all additional revenues and cutting expenditures and adding expenditures, it's a total fund change to the general fund budget from what I initially proposed, which was $246,620,485. It would bring the new general fund total to $246,653,085. And that would leave over $6,780 left in that unallocated contingency if we were to make all of these final changes moving forward. And so as you know, we normally keep a running list of final changes, so I'm sure I'll be back on Thursday to present final changes because the budget is always changing. So this is what we had at, I believe, as of yesterday, so it's pretty up to date. $6,780 as of now.
And that does not include the nurse change that we'll have to make, and there are other things that we're still researching and looking through to make adjustments to transfer stuff from 18 back to 17's budget, but we have not had the time frame to do that in preparation to getting this ready for the preparation for this evening, so we will definitely have more changes.
If there's not any additional questions, I believe that's it for the finance update.
Additional questions for these ladies, commissioners? That's a lot of numbers.
No questions, just compliments.
Yes.
That's a lot of information. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Okay, we are running a little behind schedule. We appreciate everyone's patience. Next item up is a presentation for the fiscal year 18 budget request from Cabarrus Arts Council. We're happy to have Noelle Rhodes and Scott and several others, and we'll let her introduce her backup team.
Thank you. Thanks so much for letting us be here. I've got Keith Gale, our incoming chair, and Bill Dush, our treasurer, are with me tonight. We would have more, but we're getting ready to start our own board meeting in about 2 minutes, so thank you for letting us present. Would you like me to launch right in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You have 2 minutes. So
You didn't tell
so
me.
you're not late for our board meeting.
Actually, she only has one. Bobby gets the other
They
one.
won't miss me. Oh, the Arts Council Board and staff truly appreciate your support as well as this opportunity to present to you. The Arts Council and Cabarrus County have a long history, beginning in 1982 when the commissioners named the Cabarrus Arts Council the county's designated county partner. As a DCP, we receive and distribute grassroots grants from the North Carolina Arts Council to arts projects in Cabarrus County. The Cabarrus Arts Council energizes our community through arts excellence by working with many partners to improve the lives of citizens, enrich the quality of education, spark the local economy, and generate centers of creative activity. Your support is vital to the effectiveness of the Arts Council. Our board and team work together to develop arts programs and to find new ways of engaging the community and attracting visitors to Cabarrus County. Over the past 3 years, we have conducted research for Americans for the Arts to measure the impact of the arts on our local economy, and that study will be released in September. The Arts Council's impact reaches across Cabarrus County and into every municipality. In Kannapolis, the Arts Council presented Pops in the Park concerts for several years until their Parks and Recreation Department could take them over. Now they present performances and movies throughout the summer, for which we give them a grassroots grant. In Harrisburg, the Arts Council worked with the Arts Committee to help them develop goals. We assist them in finding performers for Rockin' the Berg concerts and artists to conduct participatory murals and assistance with their art walks. We give them a grassroots grant to support these programs. In Midland, the Arts Council sent out a call for artists to display art at Town Hall, and we support Midland Magic when it is held. Mount Pleasant has contacted the Arts Council to ask for assistance when it is ready to start arts programs. And the Arts Council, of course, is housed in your historic courthouse building in downtown Concord. And Concord receives the direct benefit of 17,000 visitors that annually come to that site. Students take part in the arts, brings performances to 30,000 students across the county every year. Many of these students would never see live performances without this program. We award grassroots grants to support Union Street Live, Spring Into Arts Festival, Logan Daycare Music Program, Southern Piedmont Woodturners, Hospice Interlude Music, Old Courthouse Theater, Cabarrus Art Guild, Multicultural Student Union, North Carolina Music Hall of Fame, Piedmont Choral Society, and school artist residencies. The transformation of your historic courthouse into an arts center has meant that this iconic building that was basically closed to the public is now open 5 to 6 days a week with activities on all 3 floors. Programs and events attract visitors and citizens to visit, such as Art on Tap, our group of young professionals who gather several times a year for events. Family days that attract young families for crafts-filled Saturdays. The listening room that showcases local talent on the Davis Theater stage. The galleries and gift shop that attract school groups and visitors with activities, art, and shopping. This year, we added matinees to 4 of our Davis Theater shows, which doubled those audiences. The Arts Council has invested $400,000 in the historic courthouse building, and we are currently upgrading the theater and galleries with an additional $20,000. Local government support is tremendously important to us, and each municipality supports the Arts Council at 50 cents per capita. This translates to Concord at $42,780, Kannapolis at $21,300, Harrisburg at $7,065, Midland at $1,607, and Mount Pleasant at $850. We are tremendously grateful to each of you and appreciate your consider of our request for support. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Noel? I just offer a couple comments. I think you do a tremendous job, and certainly amongst those, as you very well pointed out, the utilization of the historic courthouse. Had an opportunity to participate Saturday morning with the Congressional Art Contest, and we had folks there from all over the 8th District that traveled, and these were students presenting their art. And I think the parents and families were most impressed by what we offer there and the facility, and that happens all the time with folks locally and from outside the county. So it's something for all of us to be proud of, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck with your board meeting.
Thanks a lot.
And we're happy to have Robbie Carney with us from the Economic Development Corporation.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for the time. Mic working okay? Good? Okay. Thank you so much for the time this evening. We, on behalf of the Cabarrus Economic Development Corporation, we always appreciate you taking the time. Tonight, I'm requesting consideration for continued investment in our corporation. Hopefully, you agree with us when we say this is some of the best investment that we believe the county makes in terms of the future growth and successful growth of Cabarrus County. I've got 2 documents that I plan for us to go through tonight that I think really kind of summarize our upcoming fiscal year. But really quickly, I wanted to give little metrics based on what this past year we've experienced. So first and foremost, our mission is to increase the quality of life through increasing the tax base of the community, increasing the community wealth of the community through both high quality business and job growth as well as job diversification. Fiscal year 16 and 17 were exceptionally good years for the EDC, but I would say that fiscal year 16-17, we've more than doubled our investment numbers this past year, or thus far on this year. We've announced $520 million in new project announcements and 703 full-time jobs created. To give you an idea, those 703 full-time jobs are head of household incomes. That's what we consider them when they are over and above the Cabarrus County wage average, which each one of those are. Based on our incentive policy that we currently have in place, if you were to just take a measurement of the 15%, which would be the collectible revenues based off that increased tax value for projects announced this year, this single year alone, our announcements will generate $546,000 in new tax revenue created. And over the period, which is not our standard, but it is an incentive period that's typically used, a 5-year period, that generates $2.7 million in net revenue to the county over these 5 years. And that's just the single year measured and how those revenues will translate. So like you said, for the money that you provide our corporation, we hope that it is a very, very good investment. We're actively working to grow in a healthy and successful manner. The county tax department was kind enough to help us put together some additional numbers that I thought might be relevant for this discussion. Since 1997 to 2015, the county has approved and allocated a total of $31.9 million in performance-based tax incentives. Performance-based should be defined. First off, a company has to specifically make a obligation to what they're going to do. They are going to locate in the community, the amount of money or new tax investment they are going to put into the community, the amount of jobs that they're going to create into the community, and the wages that they're going to pay. Once a company has done that, they've proven both their investment, their jobs, and they've gone through a pretty rigorous process to prove that. Only then, if they're in good standing with both local government as well as state government, and they've paid their taxes, do they get any type of tax incentive back. So $31.9 million in performance-based tax incentives since 1997. Those projects have generated $190 million in new tax revenue to Cabarrus County during that time. That does not take into any consideration any type of multiplier, sales tax, permit fees, anything allocated. That's truly just new tax revenue generated by those projects announced. So this is the way in which our corporation works to help balance when we talk about cost and the increase in cost to a community. This is what we feel is our role and responsibility in helping to manage those costs. So just wanted to give some of that information. And then I didn't know that there was a better document that I could provide, which is our upcoming 2017-2018 fiscal year program of work. If you look, you'll see two documents actually. You have our program of work, and then you have our fiscal year budget. The intent of these two documents is to absolutely mirror each other. The work efforts that we plan to allocate is supposed to mirror the expenditures of how those dollars would be spent for the upcoming year. So to go over this quickly, and if there's any questions at any point in time that you'd like to stop me, please don't hesitate to do so. With regards to investor relations, we're trying to establish more balance and stability in the corporation. So therefore, we're looking to do a investor recruitment program. This would be to bring on more private sector investors. They add not only business and community knowledge, but they also add stability to our corporation because it is so heavily reliant on government revenues at the present time. So it's a stability effort that we're planning to do. We're going to create Cabarrus County Economic Development recruitment documents. We're going to hold investor events, and then we're going to do not only quarterly meetings, but also annual meetings. And this is the networking, providing information to the community about what we're seeing in the marketplace, as well as to learn of what they're seeing in the marketplace so that we can create better strategy. With regards to recruitment strategy, you're going to see multiple line items that are identified there. One of the things that should be focused on is our corporation's focus is based on relationships. Relationships drive projects. Just to give you a little insight into the metrics that we work with, the Charlotte Regional Partnership, which is one of our lead development agencies, basically we operate with a 1% close percentage for them. So for every 100 projects they bring us, we close one of those. For the EDPNC, Economic Development Partnership North Carolina, we operate with 2% close percentage. For every 100 projects, we close 2 of those. And then you also have site consultants, brokers, realtors, and other lead generators. For all of that category right there, we close 37% of projects. So from an organizational standpoint, our focus is where we have the most bang for our buck, where we see the highest and best results. We've been focused a lot on marketing in the past, on advertising. I would like for this corporation to focus mainly on building and growing really solid relationships with the market and those that have the ability to dictate where projects go. So we're really focused on who our lead generators are. Not only are we focused on how do we turn 1% close rate at CRP into 5%, but we're also focused on how do we make the CRP themselves a better corporation as far as how much lead activity that they generate, and as well as with the EDPNC. As you may already know, we're limited in how much we can influence the actions and activities they do. Whenever it comes to direct lead generators, brokers, site consultants, there's a lot of opportunity there. Those are direct relationships that we can go out, search, and make contact with them, tell them about the Cabarrus County story, tell them about what we're seeing in the marketplace and what we have to offer. And that's how we're going to create and land more projects for the area. So you'll see from the recruitment strategy standpoint, it's all based on relationships, but we have it broken out to multiple areas. You have industrial, which is a target industry approach where we would be focusing on consultant visits and trips. CRP mission trips, site consultant visits, economic development partnership, North Carolina, and then also independent trip development. We'd be working through strategic organizations for access to target markets. That's the IEDC, International Economic Development Corporation, NCEDA, North Carolina Economic Development Association, and then Select USA, which is basically the U.S. Department of Commerce's external marketing arm. And then you have commercial and back office strategy. As this community grows and develops, we're seeing that more and more opportunities with regards to high-density office development are becoming relevant, not only to Concord, but also to Harrisburg and Kannapolis. And then we'll see emerging opportunities as the community grows. But that's something that we directly need to be focusing on, and we need to focus on those broker networks, letting them know what kind of product we have to offer, what kind of workforce we have here in the area, so we can make ourselves more attractive to those types of opportunities. That's something we plan to do in the upcoming year. Then you have advanced manufacturing, which is motorsports, advanced manufacturing, the PRI show, which is something we've attended in the past, as well as the May Race Week consultant event. We're actually entertaining multiple projects this week for the race. And then you have emerging strategy. This is us staying on the cutting edge of next technologies that are coming down for our future. You have working in conjunction with existing industries, focusing on what their supplier base is demanding and then changing technologies that they're employing. You have working in conjunction with the NCRC and the technology that they're developing. We've been very focused on the tools that they're using in their campus, and the solutions that they're creating are something that need to be actively promoted and sold and represented through our corporation. That's something that we're working on currently. And then you see emerging opportunities through Industry 4.0 and IoT. Had the opportunity last year to be at the largest manufacturing trade show. It was in Hannover Messe, Germany, where the entire platform of the event was Industry 4.0. This is basically fully automated manufacturing processes, and that is the future of the manufacturing industry, where you're going to see a dramatic change in workforce demands. It's going to be extremely high skilled, extremely well educated, but at the same time, you're not going to see the same manpower demands. We need to recognize that. We need to focus on what that looks like and how that's relevant to our community moving forward. Then you have IoT, which stands for Internet of Things, which is advanced equipment, advanced machinery, all being able to talk to one another. And that's something that, once again, we need to really be focused on moving forward as a corporation. Retention and expansion, this is something that I consider to be one of our tenant efforts, is keeping our existing businesses happy, successful, and growing, finding out what their needs are, what their demands are on an ongoing basis, and finding new ways to grow their operations. It's not enough just to locate a company here, but once they're located here, you want to continue to find opportunities to grow them, and that's something that we directly focus on. You'll see a minimum of 80 visits. Typically, those 80 visits translate to more like 160 or 200 plus visits, because when they actually have a solution that's needed, when they have a project where they're entertaining the idea of expanding their operations, typically there's a lot of meetings that have to go in after that for us to be able to find a solution for them. Marketing and communications, collaborative marketing through Cabarrus County. That's with a lot of our partnering corporations and organizations in the community. Managing our existing industry newsletter, something we've been doing for some time. Launch Made in Cabarrus. This is an initiative to engage not only our thought leaders in the community, but the average citizens that live and work in the community as well. They don't always know about what kind of innovation, what kind of technology is taking place, and this would be our opportunity to equip them with that knowledge. Unfortunately, we're a relatively small corporation. We're a team of 4, including myself. If we can engage the average citizen, the average taxpayer, to know what kind of innovation, what kind of technologies are taking place, and make that an interesting story that they tell external audiences, that better brands and markets this community as a place for good business. Continue public relations strategy, website development, and a possible logo refresh. Continued social media strategy is something that we've been focused on. And then workforce development. Workforce development is the #1 priority of industry today. If you ask any type of site consultant dialogue, magazine presentation, anything where they're surveying CEOs or site consultants, they're saying the #1 demand right now is having a workforce with the skills necessary to do the job. And businesses are moving to those types of communities that can meet that skills demand. So we've been very focused on continuing partnership for Workforce Alliance, ACT Work Ready Community Initiative, the North Carolina Manufacturers Institute, the Go Bold campaign, as well as working with the K through 12 system, as well as Rowan Cabarrus Community College. We can't play necessarily a lead role in this, but our job is to be a sounding board. Our job is to be a resource to where we can deliver very valuable information to these partnering entities, telling them exactly what we're seeing in the marketplace, what those demands are, and how exactly we can achieve those, kind of moving that needle forward as far as advancing skills. Product development. Product is absolutely key and vital to any community's growth initiative. Just having all the necessary metrics to grow isn't enough. You actually have to have product for a business to grow and succeed. So site development, working with our private sector on not only helping them land the stuff that we currently have on the market, but bringing on new product and marketing opportunities is key and critical for us. And then last but certainly not least is our elected official program, which is basically educating our thought leaders, educating our elected leaders about what we're doing as a corporation, how we're doing it, why is it important, why is it relevant, so that we have a cohesive team at all times, all focused on the right things, moving together. So in a nutshell, that's our program of work for the upcoming year. Once again, it needs to be said that these are all the work initiatives that we plan to do outside of landing projects, outside of actually working deals and working with our existing industries on those project metrics that we had talked about earlier. When we have any downtime, these are the things that we're going to be addressing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that this board may have.
Questions for Robbie?
So you mentioned the private sector.
Yes.
Do you know the percentage of your budget that comes from the private sector versus the government agencies?
So this past year, as you can see on our proposed fiscal year budget, our receivables was about 130. It looks like we're still finishing up our fiscal year, but it looks to be about 130 in private sector funding. And that is a lot of board level membership that have been, long-time investors that have been invested in the corporation. What we're trying to do is trying to bring on almost a different dimension of more community engagement with smaller, because not every investor can be a $15,000 board level investor. At the same time, the last thing we ever want to do is compete with, for instance, a Chamber of Commerce. But we do see that there's a very real and relevant role that brokers, developers, those that are directly involved in the economic development process could play in being a partnering investor. And therefore, we can kind of trade off a lot of information and both benefit from it.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have one quick question. You mentioned how important workforce development is. And I guess, just out of curiosity, are you hearing, or the word on the street, that this is a good place because our people are ready? Or are you hearing that, well, that's one of the cautious things that we look at when we're looking at your area, sure, and compared to other places that they're considering?
So I would say, and I'm going to be a little bit general, so I apologize, because it depends on what kind of industry we're talking about. We're better than most, and we're better than most for a few reasons. A, we've had substantial residential growth. The region itself has had substantial residential growth. You actually have individuals that are coming here because they know that jobs and opportunity exist here, even without a job at certain points in time. Our logistical advantage, because we pull from the term that we use is called labor shed. It's, if you put a point on a map, it's how many people are within a 50-minute driving radius of that. Because we have an advantage logistically with our interstate system, we have a very, very large labor shed, meaning we can pull from a multi-county area. That is a benefit to us. Then you have Rowan Cabarrus Community College, I would say, is they're ahead of the curve. They get it, they understand it, they see the skills gap that exists. The K through 12 system, they see the skills gap. The problem is it's such a hard, it's a cultural shift that almost has to take place. You have the influence of a parent to their children. You have children where they believe opportunity is, which the average student thinks their only opportunity exists with the the 4-year degree program, whereas the manufacturing and industry is saying, no, there are opportunities outside of that. I think countywide, we're doing a very, very good job of telling that story, making those adjustments, but we're still, the high skill workforce demand. If we had 1,000 people right now that were highly skilled, labor qualified, this market would absorb them almost immediately. And so there's just that much pent-up demand in the marketplace.
Yeah, I guess that's part of what I was curious about. And I mean, about the 6th or 7th page going back, we looked at expenditure by percentage, and 44% was education. I think I've got the number right, 44? 47. So if we weren't hitting the mark, and that number was that high, boy, we'd have a real disconnect. So I
Sure.
guess that was really my curiosity. And I guess, and this is certainly a discussion for another day and another time, but if that development needs to go even further, I mean, that's just a discussion that needs to be had with, the people on that side of the equation
Sure.
to make sure that we're getting there. But that's, I guess, that's an astounding percentage when you really look at it, but we know that there's a return on that investment, that we have to do it, and it's good policy to be supportive. But we want to make sure that what you guys are out selling, that is hitting that we're hitting the mark with that.
Sure.
And I don't know, Commissioner Poole has, I'm sure, some ideas, or not ideas, but comments to make, and she may or may not want to make them, but she and I have talked about workforce development before, and I always enjoy and what she has to say about it, but because she knows a lot more about it than I do. She's in it every day. But
And
so
she's been a great resource to us, too, moving forward.
That was really
Other questions or comments? The figures you threw out, 1997 through 2015,
Yes, sir.
31.9 million in incentives. And what was that tax
So
revenue?
the number that was provided to me, in which, they've provided the spreadsheet, was collected to date, and this is tax net of grants collected in total based on those projects that have received incentives. Some of them have, some of them haven't, but they're all economic development related projects. It's $190.7 million in that time period. So
Yeah, that's
600+% increase on the county's investment over that period of time.
I think that's impressive, and we can repeat that several times so people understand the benefits of it. You also mentioned that you had not included in that were any of the multipliers.
Yes, sir.
Which that's pretty substantial too. I was at an event this past week, was talking with somebody, a new company to Cabarrus County. I said, we're so happy to have you here in Cabarrus County. He said, well, we're happy to be here. He said, I don't actually live in Cabarrus County, but I enjoy working here. And I said, well, that's okay. We enjoy selling you gas and providing you lunch every day and some of the other things. And he looked straight back at me. He said, I hadn't thought about that, but since I started working over here, I buy 100% of my gas in Cabarrus County. So I think it's those little small things, and that happens, when you're talking about the number of employees attached to those investments. That's no small benefit either.
Yeah, and those numbers. So we've always tried to keep our metrics very defensible. And once you start getting into multipliers, it's easy for those to turn fuzzy. We never
Right.
want that to happen. So just basically, this is purely the amount of incentives that have been allocated over that period of time, and this is the amount of tax revenue that's been received from those subject companies. And that keeps it very. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, those multipliers are that's real revenue. That's real money generation for the community.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Mr. Carney? We thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next up, we have the Cabarrus Convention and Visitors Bureau. And we have Donna Carpenter and John Mills, and I think they have another large contingent backing them up over here.
It's our leadership team is back there. Raise your hand. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this evening. And we always like to say that we're not here to ask you for any of your budgeted money. It's quite opposite. We always like to say that we've increased the revenues for that administrative fee each and every year. from occupancy tax collections. So that's always great. I think Pam is going to talk today.
Yes, on behalf of Jennifer Parsley, our chairman for the CVB board, she was unable to be with us this evening. I also serve on the executive board as the treasurer, so I'm very familiar with their financial statements and their budget. Our board approved the budget 100% at the last board meeting. The budget is very similar in presentation that you received from Kristen, and the expenditures are broken down into 3 different categories: salaries, administration, operations, and sales and marketing. The board has put a great deal of emphasis on the sales and marketing. A lot of significant changes have been made in those areas. We can contribute a lot of that to Mr. Bonoski and John with the CVB. They have made a great deal of changes in new areas of advertising agency that has been hired, a remodel or upfit of the website, a lot of awesome videos that we have seen at all of our board meetings and have been out on the YouTube, and a lot of great marketing materials. A lot of progress has been made in that area, and the board is very proud of that progress over the past year, and we're looking forward to the new year. And John will be able to go through and break down and tell you all about the expenditures. He's very detail-oriented and has a lot of data here, but Donna just wants to see the baby, so we're going to let John present the baby and not talk too much about in detail. So I'll turn it over to them.
You wanna go
We're going to
first?
go? Okay. Did you have that other PowerPoint, Megan? There you go. Awesome. So on the just incredible growth that we've seen, the next slide, Megan, if you'll go to that, I think it just speaks right here to what we've seen. This has been our budget since fiscal 2010 up to 2018, sitting a little over $3 million. The interesting thing about that curve, we didn't have any hotels come into the market during that entire curve. Up until that 2018 year, as you know, we opened up 2 hotels. The Homewood Suites opened up in December, and we just opened Uptown Suites last month. So all of that curve is representative of increased demand, more visitation, and higher rates. In fact, the hotels track their information on a calendar basis. So if you look at 2016, the county ran 69% occupancy, was a record for us. We ran $104.33 on average daily rates, which was a record for us. So this is amazing that in 2016, we finished 3 years of double-digit growth. Again, no new hotels coming in the market. It's just increased demand and allowing new rates as well for us. So next slide. So the budget that we're sitting on for 17 is still $5.5 million, are forecasted to come in slightly ahead of that. So we do have a proposed budget of $5,697,614. I can tell you we've been very conservative through the years, and the revenues have been outpacing us. If you look at that chart, kind of conservative by nature, it's allowed us to build our tourism capital reserve. So some of the things that Donna's probably going to get into, some projects we were able to do because, again, those revenues have outpaced our expenses over the last several years. So next slide. So as Donna alluded to with the admin fee a second ago, through legislation, the maximum amount that the counties are able to retain is 5%, and that admin fee based on our occupancy tax budget for FY18 is $282,000. So that's $282,000 that comes back and stays in the general fund for the county. The county also retains another 5% for sports development. So that'll be another $282,000 that'll go into that fund. We started that back in fiscal 2012, and this year we actually went over the $1 million mark on that fund. So looking forward to continuing to evaluate that program going forward and seeing what could come out of that. This next slide is just an allocation of how we break down our expenses, and what you're seeing in all the colored charts are our peer CVBs across the country. And this chart shows, based on budget size, how do all those peer groups of ours budget their dollars. So the top blue line is the salary line. You can see if you're looking at the second from the right, which is the $5 to almost $10 million, you can see most of peers in our budgets class spend about 34% on people. We spend 27.6%. And the goal is always, how do we control our fixed costs and push as much into sales and marketing? Because that's our mission, and that's what we're out to do. On the administrative side, we're sitting around 11.6%. On the peer side, it's about 9%, but for us, the admin fee, that $282,000, sits in that category for us. So that's usually why we might tend to go a little bit higher than in our peer groups. However, we're pushing almost 61%, and again, our numbers are in the red, 61% into sales and marketing, where our peer groups are in 57%. And as Pam stated, this is where we go out and we're going out to the leisure market, the group market. This is where we take care of our visitors when they're in the visitor center, whether in the visitor center or we're from mobile, like we've been at the race last weekend, this weekend. And obviously tourism advocacy and the things that we do in partnership to educate our partners on how they can go about being better advocates for tourism and our visitors when they're in the market. So this is a basic breakdown of our budget. Again, our goal is to beat our peers and to make sure that we're spending the money as we should in sales and marketing as relative to what our peer CVBs are doing.
And I'm going to talk about the fun stuff that we've been doing this past year, and some things that are coming up. We will be hosting what is called Travel Media Showcase on August 22nd through the 25th. This is a different type of show or a conference that we've hosted in the past, and because it's 200 in attendance, but 90 of those in attendance are travel writers and bloggers. So they will be coming here to learn about our community and write about those different stories and about the people here and the attractions that we have. That's the kind of media that we can't ever afford to be able to pay for. So they're going to be here in our community, and we have a lot of our hospitality partners on board to meet them while they're here. As John said, we opened 2 new extended stay properties this past year, the Uptown Suites with 120 rooms and the Homewood Suites with 105 rooms. And both of those properties are performing very, very well, staying full. They opened at just the right time, right during race season. So our visitors were also able to experience those new properties that we opened up. One of the other projects that the board had approved for us, we've been working on it almost 2 years now, is a wayfinding program, which is to create wayfinding signs from all of the hotel areas and to the outer parts of our communities. So how do we have connectivity and show the visitor how to get around and generate consumer confidence when they're going out to the arena? They can drive for a little while and think they're lost. With the wayfinding program, we'll have signage out there to ensure them that they're going in the right direction and that they're almost there. So that program, the board will have spent about $500,000 of our money to produce the project itself. We are under contract with Sign Right, which is Right Light. I got it wrong. Right Light, which is a local company here in Cabarrus County, and hopefully those signs will be installed by the end of the summer. So we're looking forward to that and excited about our partnership, and thank the county for taking over that program, and it's going to be exciting to see those signs finally come up after 2 years. And as Pam said, we have hired an agency for the first time this year, Eric Mower and Associates, out of Charlotte, and they are doing a fantastic job working with Mike Bonofsky and our marketing department. We have started a program called The Real People of Cabarrus County, and we have several videos of some of our local people here, and you can find those on our Facebook page. So I encourage you to go and look on the Facebook page or on a YouTube site, and it's Real People of Cabarrus County. Is that how it's tagged? Yeah. So go out there and look at those. They were amazing. They have gotten great reception from everyone that we've shown them to, and I'm excited for you all to see them. We would have shown them to you tonight, but it would have taken a little too much time. And last but certainly not least, our new destination guide. And I will pass, I've got one for each of you if you haven't already seen this. These also contain the covers. We do 4 this year instead of just 1, and they are the Real People of Cabarrus County also. And this is our first one. Our second one will be the Ray family, which is the Stingray family at the aquarium. The third one, and that will sort into the summertime and family fun. The third one is Kathleen Reeder from the Bead Lady in downtown Concord, which will encourage shopping. And then the last one is Cabarrus Brewing and the Brewmaster, and it will coincide with North Carolina Beer Month next year. So we're super excited about our publication. We changed the size of it. We actually have changed everything about it, and it's now called the Destination and Motorsports Guide, and we are flying through these already, and we just started giving them out in April. So glad for you all to look at those. I think that's about it. If we don't have any questions, I do want to say that the board, we appreciate our board, and Diane also serves on our board and the guidance that they provide us. We always, as an organization and staff, our goal is to be as transparent as possible and be good stewards of those tax dollars that we collect from our visitors. And I hope you see that we do that well, and I would encourage each one of you that if you ever have any questions about anything that we're doing, any programs that we have in place, to please give us a call and come in, and we'll be happy to have a conversation with you. You can also visit our business site, which is cabcocvb.com, and everything that we do is on that business site. It's not the leisure site, that's visitcabarrus.com, but that one is our business site. And if you're looking for any of our press releases or anything like that, those are all in there.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Donna or John? We do have a request from the CVB to approve their budget tonight, which would require us to suspend our rules. So at this time, I would entertain a motion that we suspend the rules of procedure. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And do I hear a motion to approve the Tourism Authority's fiscal year 2018 budget?
I'll move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, which I think should read with your approval. Motion to approve the Tourism Authority's fiscal year 2018 budget totaling $5,697,614 in accordance with Article 4, Room Occupancy and Tourism Development Tax, Tourism Authority of the Cabarrus County Code of Ordinances. Do you approve that? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes and your budget's approved. Thank you very
Yay,
much.
thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yes.
I'll just leave these right here for you when you get finished. Thank you
Okay.
again.
Great, thank you. And now I think we are scheduled to take a break, so we will break for 15 minutes and come back at 6:25.